Hi, everyone. My name is Kayiza, and I'm a filmmaker from Oklahoma, now based in Brooklyn, New York. My background is in nonfiction storytelling, although I would describe myself as a filmmaker that's interested in exploring the space between our definitions of fiction and nonfiction cinema. I've been creating nonfiction films since I was in high school, and I was lucky to have filmmaking first and foremost introduced to me as a form of storytelling. I'm a first generation Ugandan, which is important context for how I ground my work. Much of my life was spent exploring the space in between. So the space between the US and Uganda, all of the lines separating my hometown in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the interior of my home as a child of immigrants, and my access to space as a US citizen. The thing about being first generation in my case is that a lot of tangible things are lost in migration. I never had an archive from my parents growing up, so storytelling really anchored my sense of belonging through these various landscapes and helped me define how I was seen. My sense of personal history was tethered to where we were and what we experienced and how those stories were told by others. Being somewhere without the ability to clearly locate how I got there led me to be deeply interested in people's relationships to space and landscapes. My most recent work, Edgecombe, explores how history repeats and reinvents itself in a rural Black community in North Carolina. And my film, See You Next Time, shows the relationship between a Chinese nail technician and her Black client through the only space they share, a Brooklyn nail salon. In many ways, my background and this perspective, as well as my past work, is the foundation for my first nonfiction feature film called The Gardeners. The Gardeners follows the worthy women of Watkins Street Cemetery, keepers of one of the oldest Black cemeteries in Mississippi. I traveled to Natchez during the summer of 2019 and learned about why the work of these women were so vital. As a result of Jim Crow segregation, until the 1900s, there was not an accessible burial site for African American community members in Natchez, Mississippi city limits. In 1909, 10 Black business people purchased the land and established the cemetery. During that time, there was no plan of how the land would be maintained, and individual family members or hired caretakers tended to loved ones' plots. My guide through this visit was Miss Dorothy Sanders, the current president and one of the film's central voices. This is her standing in front of her childhood home, blocks from where Watkins Street Cemetery is. She explained to me that the Worthy Women was founded to bring the cemetery back to life. There are many generations of caretakers of Watkins Street, but over the years, the cemetery had fallen into disarray. So it became overgrown, graves became illegible and were sinking into the ground and even falling into the bayou back behind the cemetery. Miss Sanders spends her days organizing the care of Watkins. In many ways, the Worthy Women represent the story of a lot of elders who are aging in communities whose dominant history often neglects the lives and experiences of its Black residents. The Gardeners will explore some of these themes. So aging, caretaking, how the Worthy Women remember and honor their ancestors through their physical labor, and the way in which those ancestors surround them in daily life. So the film will begin in present day with the current lives of Miss Dorothy Sanders and other community members. They will be the conduit into exploring the history of the community. The narrative will interweave the past and the present and experiment putting current residents in conversation with their ancestors that are buried at Watkins. The story of the community is physically located within the cemetery, and my intention is for the cemetery to become a site where the rules of time are largely suspended. I'm currently in pre-production and am planning to be in Natchez this coming fall for about 4 to 6 weeks to begin production. In order to bring this film to life, I'm most urgently seeking a creative producer with feature film experience to support building the structure around the film and community around the film, as well as assist with fundraising. Thinking ahead, I'll also be in need of post-production resources and editing space, particularly based in the South, as well as financial and legal impact support. Part of the creative life for this film is contributing to building a sustainable, long-term, perpetual care plan for Watkins Street Cemetery. My impact goals are very local, which is to use this film to support the work of the Worthy Women and contribute to the archive of this community. This year in particular has been a reminder of the importance of protecting our Black elders and honoring the work that they do while they're still with us. So too often lost but not forgotten is a promise that we don't keep. And my hope is that this film will honor the names and the histories lost along the way and the beautiful ways this community chooses to remember. Thank you so much for listening.